Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those who are new, my name is Eve Daniels, aka The Nerdy Nanny, and today I wanted to talk with you guys a little bit about the glory that is fan fiction. And no, I'm not being sarcastic. Let's get into it. So, for those of you who don't know, and serious, if you don't know, where have you been? Were you hiding under a rock? Were you in Bikini Bottom? Because there's fan fiction in Bikini Bottom. There's a lot of fan fiction in Bikini Bottom. Basically, fan fiction is any kind of pre-existing fictional premise. So a book, a TV show, a movie, comics, anything like that, that you then borrow and play around with a little bit. And there's a couple of different formats that fan fiction can take, and I'm going to go into those. But I also really want to talk about why I feel like fan fiction is such a phenomenal tool for young writers. All right. For those who don't know, writing is hard. It's really hard. There's a reason why, of all the people that you know who say, I have a great idea for a book, the vast majority haven't actually written their book. It's not easy. It takes hours of work, hundreds of hours even, of drafting and edits and re-edits. And this is assuming that you're a half-decent writer. Getting to that point, honing your craft, or in more plain terms, just being a less sucky writer, that takes work in and of itself. Like, not just developing the story, but developing your writing. Most fiction writing consists of a couple of different primary elements. You have the plot, obviously, which is like your main story that you're moving along. You also have your characters, and they need to be fleshed out as real and whole people. And then you have your description of events, which is different from the plot. Like, saying that someone ran to chase down the bad guy, that's your plot. How you describe that happening, that's what makes it into your story. The way that you tell about transpiring events is what makes different writers distinct. And then you also have setting, which is in fantasy and science fiction writing a lot harder. In fiction writing that is based in reality, you can research, you can go visit a place. But when George Lucas was creating Star Wars, for example, he couldn't exactly go visit Tatooine, so he kind of had to make it up. And worlds that are complicated or build on multiple planets or multiple planes of existence or create systems of government or magic that are entirely new require a little more effort. So far, we have plot, characters, world building, how you describe events, and then we have impact. Impact is hard to measure, but it is the culmination of all four of those previous elements. And it's what makes some stories sink their teeth into you. It's what makes some stories leave scars. There's always that story that you remember, or even half remember. You don't know what the name of it was, and you don't know any of the characters, and you don't necessarily even know the author. But when you think of just this barest glimmer of a memory of this story, you still feel it. And that's what separates phenomenal writing and a writing that has impact from writing that doesn't. Now, in and of these other subcategories, there are things like dialogue and describing people and describing scenery, which is completely different from describing people, and tone and setting and all the rest of it. But those 5 things are sort of the cornerstones for writing. So the main reason why fanfiction is such a useful tool is because it helps you to isolate those individual components of the story, whether that's world building or character building or scene descriptions or developing plot, and it does that by isolating them. You can take a pre-existing world, like Harry Potter, and develop a unique plot. So you have the setting is all the same. You can use most of the same characters. Maybe you'll introduce a new one, or maybe it's just the same characters in a different way. Exploring the development of plot and how you choose to describe events, independently of world building and character development, is a huge resource because it allows you to focus solely on a singular part of the craft. You can take a already known story and tell it from a new character's point of view. This allows you to not have to worry about plot or even description quite so much, or world building, and mostly focus on character development. What you do and don't say is also important in that, so it's a little bit of a description aspect, but it allows you to focus on the characterization and how a character reacts in a given situation or develops in a story. There are a lot of pitfalls when it comes to fanfiction. There's tropes, there's bad fan fiction, there's terrible writing, the most common of which are tropes. Tropes happen in all kinds of genres of writing. Some are quite popular. The Chosen One Trope is a thing where the main character is the chosen one. Most of our favorite books use this trope. Mockingjay, you've got Harry Potter, you've got pretty much all of the Percy Jackson books, Magnus Chase too. But they're all sort of chosen one books. And there's a reason for that. It's a powerful trope. But tropes can be powerful tools. They can also hinder writing and stop your development. So it's something to watch out for. Another common pitfall with fan fiction is sort of the Mary Jane. Now, typically the Mary Jane is an insertion problem. Adults out there who are giggling, stop it. Self-insertion is a type of fan fiction that we're going to get into in a bit, but the Mary Jane syndrome is you've got this girl who's misunderstood, no one gets her, she's aloof and cool, but no one understands her, she's mysterious, and somehow has all of the superpowers. That's the trope that we're talking about now. Making one character so much stronger than all the others that the point is pointless. But for all its flaws and foibles, fanfiction is still an amazing resource. It's still something that should be explored by developing writers. By reading a lot of fanfiction, you can either pick up a lot of bad habits, or you can figure out what you don't want to do in your own writing. Maybe you notice that the other writers are spending a lot of time talking about brooding looks. Maybe they do a lot of dramatic sighing. Maybe there's a lot of describing of outfits. And you see it, you go, oh, that's terrible. I don't want to do that in my writing. It's just as important to, when you're reading, pick up on the things that you don't like, as it is to remember the things that you do like and hope to aspire to and emulate in your writing. Eventually, your voice becomes a combination of these things. You become the culmination of your own experience and internal voice, the authors or writers that you aspire to, the stories that ring true with you, and the things that you really don't want to emulate. These all come together and they create your author voice. This is going to change over the years with time and with different stories, but it's always unique to you. I actually write quite a bit of fan fiction, or I did when I had free time, which I don't anymore, which has made quite a few people angry. I actually had a few stories that developed a decent following, and that was really cool. Writing fan fiction still requires a lot of writing energy, so to speak, even though you're taking some of those individual aspects off your plate. you still have the remaining ones to deal with, which sucks up a lot of your creative time and energy. Using that time and energy to write fan fiction when you have other responsibilities can get a little draining. But when you aren't supposed to be writing 4,000 words a day in other various subjects, fan fiction is where it's at. My absolute favorite type of fan fiction is actually crossovers. Taking characters and plots and situations and worlds from one story or genre and mashing them up with another. This still requires plot development, as you can't just shove the two together, because now the plots from both worlds will have changed. And it requires a little bit of juggling to keep both sets of characters in character. There's nothing more jarring than reading a story where one of the characters just acts completely out of ordinary. So it takes a little bit of balancing, but that's the part that I enjoy. Focusing on the narrative that I'm telling is hugely helpful to me, and it allows me to practice that part of my storytelling ability, which is usually where I struggle with. Characters, for the most part, I know my characters. I know who they are. They're old friends. But not just developing a plot, but spinning a narrative and doing it in a cohesive way that is appealing to readers and fun to write, that's something that I struggled with for a long time. I also learned a lot through writing my fanfiction. I learned that I'm overly fond of certain adjectives. I learned that I like to do a lot of intense staring, which is another trope. I learned that I apparently have a crush on Xander Harris from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Is he single? Someone let me know if he's single. He's cute. Even if fanfiction isn't exactly novel writing and it's not professional, it is an incredible creative release, and it's a great way to isolate and hone different aspects of the writing craft. If you as a young writer want to explore it, I absolutely recommend you do so. And if you're a parent or a teacher and you have students or kids who want to get into fan fiction or writing, don't discourage them. Read their work. Watch the shows that the work's based on. Read the book that the show's based on, so you have a better understanding of what they're writing. And give them feedback. Ask questions. Follow along with their stories. Be the first person to like and comment when they post a new chapter, even if they were supposed to be working on their Spanish homework instead. Also, teachers. If you have students who are struggling with the writing concept, using the fanfiction premise to isolate individual components of writing is an incredibly powerful tool. Have your students watch a famous scene from a popular movie. Could be one that just came out. There's going to be spoilers on YouTube. You'll find something. Or it could be something that's 20, 30, 40 years old. Pick a 2-minute clip, have them watch it, and have them pick a random character to write that scene from that point of view. You'd be surprised what they can come up with when the other aspects of storytelling are no longer their responsibility. When they can focus on the craft of describing the narrative, you give them a chance to practice what you really want them to develop. And as much as I have a million other reasons for why fanfiction is completely awesome, I think that's where we're going to end it for today. I hope this was helpful to you. Let me know what your favorite types of fanfiction are. If you've ever written fanfiction personally, especially if you're writing professionally or hope to write professionally now. Let me know what your favorite genres or categories are. I'm still a crossover girl, but I'm open to all kinds of new stuff. I am actually... Oh, I'm scared to do this. I'm going to link my fanfiction down below. Oh, this feels weird. This feels weird. This feels like I'm letting you read my diary. Oh, especially the Animorphs one. Oh my god, that's so old. It's so old. I think I wrote it in the the early 2000s? I was 12. Oh, God. Nope, I've said it. I've said it. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm linking it below. Just be kind. Ugh. Why does the light keep doing that? Oh, now you stop. I see how it is. Okay. And for those who are curious, yes, I am sitting on my floor. I didn't want to clean the dirty laundry out of my chair. It's fine. Totally fine. I'll get to it eventually. Stop flickering. Fanfiction comes in a couple of different forms, the most common of which is usually the self-insertion, especially with like younger teens. That has the potential to sound awkward. Like, you remember when you were kids and you would play pretend and one kid would be like, no, I've got all the cool powers. And it was never any fun playing with him because, well, if you have all the powers, then the fight's over at 4 seconds and I'm bored and I'm going to go back inside and play Pokemon.